Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this, a Super Showdown edition of Pro Wrestling Proverbs. With this being a Super Showdown edition, we will not be having a Raw or Smackdown recap as they pretty much just bled into the event itself. After the Super Showdown itself is covered, that is when we will then do Independent Impulse and then a little WWE news on events coming up or potential superstar returns. Now, if you'd like to hear more from us at Pro Wrestling Proverbs, make sure you like us and subscribe here on YouTube. Make sure you find us on the iTunes podcast app. Or if you want to find us on SoundCloud, it's SoundCloud/Pro Wrestling Proverbs. Finally, to see us tweeting about Raw, Smackdown, New Japan, pay-per-views, or just anything else in the wrestling spectrum, follow us on Twitter at PW Proverbs. And any questions about today's show, previous shows, or anything that you think should be covered on a future show, then email us at ProWrestlingProverbs@gmail.com. Now is when we're going to be getting to the meat and potatoes of the show, the stuff that you are looking for the most as fans, and this, of course, being the Super Showdown. This was live in Australia, started at 5 a.m. this morning for us here in America. I was up to make sure to watch it so that way I'd be able to jump on here right when it was due time. There was a lot of speculation online that this was going to just be a quote-unquote house show. And I have to strongly disagree with it, even before the matches itself, because you had Becky and Charlotte. You had the Shield against the Dogs of War. Cena came back. Taker came back. Triple H came back. This wouldn't just be an atypical house show. And I know what you're saying. Madison Square Garden, when they went back, Taker came back for it. But this show was something special. It kicked off with New Day versus The Bar for the Smackdown Tag Team Championship. These two teams always have amazing matches. It was just high octane, boom, boom, boom. I mean, I can't list a time that the New Day has had a bad tag team match in the past few years. The Bar, too. There's just so much talent between these five men. The New Day were represented by Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, as the announcers kept relaying to the fans the Speed Team. And, was this going to cost the New Day, since Cesaro and Sheamus are arguably two of the strongest men in the company? It's also interesting to note that they talked about the accolades of Sheamus. And, his King of the Ring win, his Royal Rumble win, Money in the Bank, multiple-time heavyweight champion, United States champion, and now the tag team titles with Cesaro. But I think they should also mention the other locker room veteran, and that was Kofi Kingston, with his U.S. title, Intercontinental Championship, multiple tag team titles. He is now, the longest reigning tag team champion. So there's just two great locker room leaders in this match, and I think we'll see these two for many years to come, as well as the other three men. Big E and Xavier have both propelled themselves past expectations, and Cesaro has been a fan-loved mainstay since showing up in the company. The New Day ended up winning the match, and now after this match, we're going to see where the SmackDown tag titles go from here. Do they continue defending against the Bar? Maybe the Usos? Perhaps a new tag team jumps on the scene? It's always a question with the New Day, but no matter who it is, it's a great match. The next match, which was surprising, was Becky versus Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Interesting to note that Becky was not featured on the poster for Super Showdown. We here at Pro Wrestling Proverbs added her in, but superstars like Shinsuke Nakamura, Alexa Bliss, Randy Orton, Finn Balor, Sasha Banks, Bray Wyatt, Carmella, and Bobby Roode weren't even on the card, and they still got a spot on the poster. And even in Australia, Becky's loved. I wondered if maybe because it was overseas, if Charlotte would get some cheers since her dad, wrestled around the globe. Maybe there was some flair in Australia. But Becky still got a lot of the cheers. Vicious-looking spears happened in this match. If you go back and you watch just snippets of it, make sure you look up the Charlotte spears, because I don't know if it was Becky selling or just the force of Charlotte, but it looked rough. Becky's just showcasing confidence as a heel right now, and it is wonderful to see. Many didn't think she could do it, yet here she is being quite possibly the top heel in the company. And being a top heel, she might have lost the match, but she retained her title as she tried carrying the championship out of the arena, just trying to walk away. Charlotte pulled her back in for the figure 8. Becky was able to grab the title and hit her with it a couple times. It was interesting. I don't know if it was meant to be this or what, but Charlotte completely no-sold the first hit with the belt, the one that the ref initially rang the bell for. Charlotte kind of didn't even realize it happened. It took a couple for this belt to really impact Charlotte and eventually give her the win. Now, I'm sure this is going to bleed into the Evolution pay-per-view, where maybe Charlotte picks up the win and becomes an 8-time women's champion, or maybe they have Becky Lynch beat her cleanly for a second time, if you're counting the Hell in a Cell and then Evolution, because she obviously lost here. The next match was John Cena and Bobby Lashley versus Kevin Owens and Elias. I'm loving this team of Kevin Owens and Elias right now. It seems like whoever you put Kevin Owens with, it's just magic. And the combo of him and Elias working the crowd, Elias doing a little bit of AC/DC, Kevin Owens going to speak, and then them cheering his name, and he still tells them that he was rudely interrupted. These two are fantastic together. Australia obviously gave them a reaction too until Kevin Owens told them he was rudely interrupted. I have to admit, I don't know how many people think so, but I thought it was great to hear Cena's entrance music again. It was interesting to see him with this head of hair and the leaner body. A lot of social media was comparing him to JBL. I wouldn't go that far. I've seen some comparisons to Mark Wahlberg, and I could see it a little bit. John definitely looked different, and I don't know if he was rusty or maybe his agents in Hollywood didn't want him to get involved a lot, but he had, I don't know, probably less than 2 minutes of offense, and he made sure to get all his moves in, though. He did the shoulder tackles, he did the side slam, he did the 5-knuckle shuffle, the AA, and then that dreaded 6 move of doom. I don't know if he's doing it to represent, Asian culture, because of Bruce Lee had the 1-inch punch, so, John Cena's got to get in a punch, but out of all of his moves, this one is going to be the worst, and this is the one he's going to take the most slack from with fans. The announcers even call it a 6 move of doom, so it makes me wonder if it's a tongue-in-cheek joke, kind of laughing at the fans. After the match, after Cena and Lashley win, Cena pinned Elias. Cena grabbed the mic, and the big thing from his address to the crowd is he said he has no idea what the future holds, so I focus on the now. Is this potentially John Cena discussing retirement from wrestling? I mean, wouldn't it be interesting if there's ramblings that Undertaker will retire at 35, Shawn Michaels will officially be done at 35? Wouldn't it be interesting if we also lost John Cena as a sports entertainer at WrestleMania 35? I guess time will only tell. John Cena is very cryptic. His Instagram shows it. So maybe this is just John poking fun. Who knows? The next time we'll see him, maybe at Crown Jewel, maybe at Survivor Series. I'm guessing if he's not back by any of them, he'll have a spot in the Royal Rumble. But who knows? Maybe he is done with the WWE. After that tag team match, we then move on to the Iconics versus Asuka and Naomi. The Iconics got love from the crowd. They cut a nice promo before the match about being home. Asuka and Naomi came out. This was a very quick match. It was a blink and you missed it type match. The Iconics hit the win, and they were both very emotional afterward. It was nice to see that the individuals from Australia were getting love tonight. There was a question on if either Australia representative would win, since, Asuka's on this side. But Naomi took the fall, so it didn't really make Asuka look weak. I'm wondering if it'll lead to maybe an Asuka versus Naomi feud, because Asuka blames her for the loss and et cetera, but we'll see. Then midway through the card, we have the WWE Championship, and it is all business in the beginning. Samoa Joe waited at the bottom of the entrance ramp. AJ Styles came out. He didn't do the flipping of the hood thing. He just took it off, and he left his belt, and they started brawling. Samoa Joe did this nasty spot where he gave AJ Styles a Uranagi through the chair, and then there was a table spot where Joe went through it, and he kept telling the ref it popped, signaling, something happened to his leg. But this was just another fantastic back-and-forth match. I don't think you could put AJ Styles and Samoa Joe in the same ring and it be a bad match. I mean, you could put, more than likely, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and a broom, and they'd get the broom over. These two are just amazing. And surprisingly, Joe ended up hitting the coquina clutch many times, but he couldn't get it fully locked in, whether because AJ getting away and out of the ring, or because he just couldn't latch that leg because it hurt so much. But AJ did manage to get the calf crusher to make Samoa Joe tap out. Now, before the calf crusher happened, Samoa Joe hinted at a muscle buster again. He keeps hinting and hinting that he's going to do it. I'm wondering if maybe he gets one more chance at the WWE Championship and he hits the muscle buster and that's what gets the win. Who knows? But there has to be a reason they keep calling back to this. But as I said, AJ Styles hit the calf crusher and Samoa Joe tapped. I didn't expect to see Samoa Joe tap out. He's one of those, and like an Undertaker, like a Brock Lesnar, you just don't expect to see tap. So that was a pretty big moment of the night. Then we move on to the Riot Squad versus the Bellas and Ronda Rousey. At first, Nikki Bella didn't want Ronda Rousey to start the match, so she started it herself. And it seemed she didn't want to tag in Rousey. The announcers kept touting the Riot Squad as the female Shield, which was a nice little yell out to them, considering how dominant the Shield have been. And, I mean, comparing them, that just shows what the brass think of the Riot Squad. This match was pretty good. It ended interestingly as Ronda Rousey, her finisher, obviously the armbar, but she ended up doing a double armbar on Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan. Interesting, one, since I don't think I've seen a double armbar before, but two, in the fact that they kept Ruby Riott out of this decision, showing that she is, I mean, if we're going to keep doing Shield comparisons, she's going to be the Roman. She's going to be the one that doesn't take the fall, the leader, while it looks like Liv Morgan is the Dean Ambrose, the crazy one. She stuck her tongue out at Brie Bella at one point during the match, and Brie grabbed it. So that was another interesting moment in the match. And then looks like Sarah Logan will be the Seth Rollins, as they touted her as the workhorse of the group. But again, not a bad match. Better than I expected, especially with how we talked about how we don't think, Ronda's too great in the ring yet, or that the Bellas are really starting to sour us. But this was still a good match, and I'm glad that it did end up happening. They, partway through the night, said that Ronda Rousey will defend her title at Evolution, but it'll be against a mystery woman. I'm wondering if this Nikki stuff is going to lead to Nikki Bella facing her, or maybe, WWE backstage changed their idea, so now maybe an open challenge to a former superstar. I don't know who it could be, but unless it's a former superstar, Nikki Bella, I will be surprised. The next match, which surprised me with how far down the card it was, is Buddy Murphy versus Cedric Alexander. But then I remembered, this is Murphy's home, and it kind of alluded to me that he was going to win the title, which he did. He had a very fast start. He hit his knee. He leapt over the ropes. It looked like he was going to win it quick and fast, and they were just going to pass on the Cruiserweight division again. But surprisingly, the match got a lot of time, and it looked wonderful. And I saw on Twitter people saying, wow, this is the first time people have seen the Cruiserweight division on a big stage since Enzo, and that's true. So now we're going to see if the Cruiserweight division gets respect it deserves. Now that Buddy Murphy's champion, maybe he faces, Hideo Itami, Akira Tozawa, Kalisto. Maybe they bring in someone else that's a junior in Japan. But it seems like the Cruiserweight division is on the up and up, and that is good, as I'm someone that hopes to see it succeed no matter what is happening. The next match after that was the Shield versus the Dogs of War. The Shield came out in new mask as they were going through the crowds, almost muzzle-like. Dean Ambrose pushed his way through the crowd, and he did not look like he wanted to be in the crowd. I don't know if there's too much touching, or maybe he just doesn't enjoy it, but you could tell there was some angst on his face. He was not enjoying it one bit. Roman Reigns, partway through the match, Superman punched Dean Ambrose on accident, of course. It wasn't on purpose. You'd never have Roman be the guy that would turn. But then this led to when, it was left to Roman and Seth in the ring, and Braun, Drew, and Dolph climbed on respective sides of the apron, and then Dean climbed on the other. And many people thought he was going to turn, but he ran in the ring first, and then he drop-kicked Braun Strowman off of the apron. It looked very good. A shield bomb was broke up by Braun, who ran in and took out the bomb as it was happening. Then Braun went on a tear. He was gonna knock Dean Ambrose with the move where he runs on the ring and shoulder checks people, but as he was running, Roman Reigns speared him through the protective barrier on the side. Then Dean got in the ring, and it looked like Drew and Dolph were going to double team him, but Seth ended up super kicking Drew, and Dean hit the dirty deeds on Dolph Ziggler. So Dean Ambrose got the win after being saved by his two brothers. This then led to the Shield celebrating on the outside, doing the fist, and you could tell that they are solidarily one unit. The next match, of course, was the number one contendership match for the WWE Championship. So the winner of this will face AJ Styles, and we found out after the match that it would be at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view. It is, of course, Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. After a little bit of back and forth, Daniel Bryan hit a roll-up and pinned The Miz 1, 2, 3. It'll be interesting to learn in the coming weeks if this was the planned finish, or if they had to rush it, or if someone goofed, because as soon as the 3 count happened, you see referee Charles Robinson grabbing his earpiece very quickly, as if someone's yelling at him or giving him instruction. But Daniel Bryan won, so it will be Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, along with the Crown Jewel tournament, along with the triple threat of Brock, Braun, and Roman for the Universal Championship. But with how fans reacted to this, I'm sure that that's just going to be a house show too. The main event, of course, is the last time ever match, and this was Triple H versus The Undertaker. Michael Cole mentioned that the first time these two fought was in 1996, and here we are, 22 years later, and they are still fighting. At the beginning of the match, the ring announcer JoJo announced that it would be a no disqualification match. And you could see the confusion on The Undertaker's face. Triple H just laughed. I guess when you are a suit, you can do what you want. I thought The Undertaker looked in really great shape here. His body didn't look, torn apart as it has in the past. His hair didn't look thin or old. He looked like The Undertaker of the end of the 2000s. Shawn Michaels really got involved in this match. A lot. There's many times he saved Triple H from Undertaker's onslaught, or the beginning of Undertaker's onslaught. Undertaker tried going to the top rope, but HBK stopped it, and he ended up hitting Kane with the sweet chin music as he tried getting involved, so he kept his promise of dusting him back with some sweet chin music. They ended up putting Kane on a table that was set up on the outside of the ring earlier in the match, and Triple H elbowed him off the apron. I kind of thought it was a missed opportunity to have Shawn Michaels elbow him through the table, but maybe Shawn didn't feel comfortable doing that. Maybe they didn't want him doing that. Who knows? And Undertaker had a tombstone, and Triple H kicked out of it, but I still say nobody kicks out of a tombstone like Triple H. Like how The Rock sells the stunner, Triple H sells that last-minute kick out, that shoulder flick, like no one else can. Undertaker was stunned enough that he knocked out referee Mike Chioda. And that's when he started using a chair. It began to bend, and Shawn Michaels could not stand it. He was on the outside. He was upset. Undertaker kicked out of one of Triple H's pedigrees, And this is when, earlier, when Taker had the chair, he wrapped it around Triple H's neck while he was on the ground. Shawn Michaels kept Taker distracted long enough so H could get up. But Triple H did this to The Undertaker and jumped off the rope, knee first. And I thought I saw bruising around Taker's neck. I'll have to go back and look, but I wouldn't imagine that's a very safe spot for anybody. Kane stopped that 3 count by pulling out the ref, and the match continued. There was an iconic image where on one end of the ring, Triple H is sitting in the corner. On the other end of the ring, Taker's sitting in the corner. For Triple H, Shawn Michaels is handing him the hammer. For Taker, Kane is handing him a steel chair, and the cameraman has it where you just see all of it. It is so iconic. The Undertaker then goes for a Hell's Gate, but Triple H manages to use the hammer and choke Taker out to get him to release it. HBK stopped Undertaker from picking up the hammer, but Undertaker ended up thwarting Michaels' plan and picked up the hammer anyway. He then threw away the hammer to the outside, but Shawn Michaels came in and sweet chin music Undertaker, didn't stir him. He then sweet chin musicked him again into a pedigree. But before that, Triple H hit The Undertaker with the hammer while he was going to tombstone Michaels. So Undertaker at this point was still standing after 2 sweet chin musics and a hammer blast. But after that second sweet chin music, it was a pedigree, and 1, 2, 3, Triple H wins for the last time ever. After the match, Triple H and Shawn embraced. You could see Taker shaking his head no. He was frustrated about the loss. They all stood up, held each other's hands, celebrated. You know, they touted this as 4 of the most influential people in WWE history, especially with all the matches these 4 combined have had. But then Taker and Kane looked at each other. Kane clotheslined Shawn Michaels, and Undertaker picked up Triple H and tombstoned him. This led to the Brothers of Destruction attacking Shawn Michaels while the crowd cheered it, more than likely because he cost The Undertaker, but still it was odd to hear the crowd cheer against Shawn Michaels. They got him to the outside, and Undertaker choke slammed him through the announce table, obviously leading up to the Brothers of Destruction versus D-Generation X match at Crown Jewel. But this was definitely no house show. Every match, except the Iconics versus Naomi and Asuka, had a good place, a good time, good back and forth action. I even thought The Miz and Daniel Bryan, even if it was a goof, even if it wasn't, it made sense. Daniel Bryan's the wrestling whiz. He outsmarted The Miz. But every match did what it needed to do. This, I wouldn't expect to pay $20, $30 to go to a house show to see this. This was special for Australia, and it kept storylines going. Will the Dogs of War call Dolph Ziggler a weak link? Will The Miz complain about the match? Who faces New Day? Becky and Charlotte's continuation. And then especially, as I said, Brothers of Destruction versus D-Generation X. This was a great card. I would give it a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. I am very glad I woke up at 5 to watch it live. I would have hated to see the results, have it spoiled for me. But this was a good show. Super Showdown definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Now, before we get into the usual independent impulse, I figured I would touch on some of the WWE news. The first big news is coming out of SmackDown 1000. It was announced that Evolution would be coming back, all 4 members. A little questionable since, they never really had runs on SmackDown together, but I digress. It's being reported that they're talking to Batista about starting something at SmackDown 1000, having it carry into Survivor Series, potentially the Rumble, potentially Mania. I know with all the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 stuff going on that this was the perfect opportunity to get Batista. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Does he have his last match with Triple H at WrestleMania 35? Do they do an Evolution match at Survivor Series? Maybe Evolution versus The Shield, or maybe, Team Shawn Michaels versus Team Undertaker, and then Evolution's on Shawn Michaels because He's friends with Triple H. It'll be interesting to see where Batista will go. And then another appearance at SmackDown 1000 is going to be Rey Mysterio's re-debut. Now, there's been rumblings that, when he comes back, maybe they move Ricochet up, then put them in a tag team. Maybe he feuds with Andrade or Shinsuke. I think a good route to go if you want to encapsulate all of these is to team him with Ricochet and have him face Andrade and Shinsuke. Those matches would be nuts. And I am quite excited to see Rey Mysterio back. Before I was a little sour on it. I didn't want to see it. But after seeing him in All In, after seeing some of his, independent matches, he's back in shape and he's back to prove who the master of the 619 is on the SmackDown brand. The Rock is also a name being rumored for SmackDown 1000. They're trying to get him for SmackDown 1000, maybe the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, and then the following SummerSlam. But the Saudi Prince wants him at the Saudi show after Crown Jewel, wanting him to be WWE or Universal Champion. It's being rumored that between all these appearances I listed, The Rock would be getting about $25 million. So, does he do it? I mean, at this point, he's pretty much his agent. He'd be risking it himself about getting hurt, but I think that this would be good for WWE, especially with the new Fox deal. I think seeing The Rock on all the programming would be fun again. We'll just have to see where The Rock's heart lies. And then another potential comeback. It seems like this is what all of the show is about. But Hulk Hogan, it's pretty much confirmed he'll be at Crown Jewel. He'll be presenting the winner of the tournament. But, they're talking about he'll be at SmackDown 1000. It makes sense. He was a big part of the early 2000s SmackDown. He was the undisputed champion for a time. Him and Edge won the SmackDown tag titles around the 4th of July in 2002. And what's even more interesting is WWE is now advertising and talking about the NWO reunion. At first, Vince McMahon was not a fan of this since, they owned NWO. But obviously, he had to give some okay. But now that they are okaying it and advertising it, maybe the NWO does appear in the WWE. Maybe we get Hogan, Hall, and Nash. Who knows? Maybe at Survivor Series, we get the NWO versus Evolution in a battle of great factions. And then, is there anything else you do with Hulk Hogan? Do you make him a general manager? Do you have him have a one more match? I mean, Shawn Michaels is having a one more match. Goldberg had his matches. Sting had WWE matches. I think with the right person, Hogan could do it. But speaking of Shawn Michaels, it's being reported online, he isn't necessarily going to put anyone over. He's just helping the company that pays him. But the interesting thing with Shawn Michaels is he said in a recent interview that it was about 5 years ago that he had the most compelling offer. Or 5 years after he lost to Undertaker, that he had a compelling offer to come back. And if you think about it, that would be around WrestleMania 30. So maybe the plan was for Shawn Michaels to end the streak that ended his career. Interesting. There's really no leg to stand on if that's what he's talking about, or maybe they had another idea. But that would be a very interesting route to go, especially since at the time Shawn Michaels had hair, and I know that's the biggest complaint people have right now. Oh, he's bald. Oh, I still think Shawn will be able to get in the ring, and he will be about 80% better than probably about 80% of the locker room. Don't hold me to it, but if Undertaker and Triple H showed me anything, it's that the Brothers of Destruction versus DX will be very, very good. Now on to the independent news. Always booming. NWA, the 70th anniversary show, will take place on October 21st, 2018, and you can stream it on Fight TV as it starts at 6:05. Road Warrior Animal will be managing the team of Crimson and Jax Dane against a mystery team. I'm wondering if maybe this will lead toward the tag team titles, since it was rumored that the tag championships would be brought back. And Animal, of course, one of the men who held the championship. Just a thought, though. I'm not too sure if and when the NWA tag team titles will come back. Also about the show, Jazz, the former ECW competitor, the former WWE Women's Champion, she cut a video speaking about how the NWA title means so much to her, and, you know, how when she's a wrestler, she's a completely different person. So, again, I am very interested to see who they have fight her for the title. My pick would still be Tessa Blanchard, and as bad as it would be, I'd have Tessa beat her, just as I said, to have a Blanchard win a title in an NWA event, since her grandfather was such a pivotal figure in the early days, and then Tully, during the golden era, was one of the best, if not the best, technical superstars. The big part going into NWA 70th is that their NWA champion is also the Ring of Honor 6-man champion and the New Japan United States champion. This, of course, being Cody Rhodes. He recently beat Juice Robinson for the IWGP New Japan Pro Wrestling United States Heavyweight Championship. And since Cody's left the WWE, he has been a belt collector. He won the GFW Next Generation title, obviously the three he has now, the Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship, and WCPW's Internet Championship. There's also a chance that he could win the NJPW, the IWGP Championship, in a triple threat match versus Kenny Omega, who's the champion, and Kota Ibushi on October 8th. So could you imagine if Cody Rhodes was walking around with 4 prestigious championships from 3 decorated companies at this time? He is definitely doing his father, brother, and fans proud. La Parka made an appearance in Impact Wrestling, and it shows that their working relations with everyone is at a sky-high limit. Seeing La Parka there showed that anyone could show up, from New Japan, from AAA, from even Ring of Honor. And it makes me wonder, do you remember when we discussed Impact and WWE officials meeting up? Perhaps they were discussing Chris Jericho making an appearance at the upcoming Bound for Glory pay-per-view. Chris Jericho has said he has respect for Vince McMahon and wouldn't work on North American soil. But what if the two companies spoke and talk about it? Maybe get a little WWE advertisement in there. He is the IWGP Intercontinental Champion, but it would be interesting to see Jericho in Impact. But that is my guess as to why the two sides talked. They are said to be on good terms. So it'll depend on what Jericho does and how it's advertised, if they tiptoe around it or what. But that is what I view is the reason that Impact and the WWE had that discussion. Now we're going to end Independent Impulse with a happy news here. Not a speculation, not a rumor, but a happy piece of news. Dennis Condrey, who of course was a member of the Midnight Express with Bobby Eaton, he ended up, beating cancer, and it was Jim Cornette who tweeted about it, and he said that Dennis Condrey will be joining Bobby Eaton at a Comic-Con, and I'm currently, here it is, as announced on this week's Experience, Dennis Condrey will be making his first public appearance since kicking cancer's ass at the Nashville Comic-Con on December 8th and 9th at the Fairgrounds. Come see me, meaning Jim Cornette, Dennis, and Bobby Eaton for the Midnight Express 35th anniversary. That is great to hear. Dennis Condrey, of course, a tag team legend, and the Midnight Express, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. So love hearing great news like that, especially for such a wrestling legend. This, of course, has been the Pro Wrestling Proverbs Super Showdown Edition. I walked you not only through the show itself, but upcoming events, the independents, and even a little bit of rumor and speculation. Again, one last congratulations to Dennis Condrey for being able to reunite the Midnight Express and kicking cancer's ass. But if you want to hear more about wrestling, make sure you subscribe and like to us here on YouTube, or find us on the podcast app on iTunes. Maybe even go to SoundCloud, SoundCloud/Pro Wrestling Proverbs. There's many different mediums for you to listen to us on. And of course, if you want to see tweets like Jim Cornette's or from other wrestling personalities, even from our own account, make sure you follow us on Twitter at PW Proverbs. We will also have polls, and you can discuss with us as we tweet. Finally, if you want to go into a more in-depth discussion, this will be our email, ProWrestlingProverbs@gmail.com. You can send us an email, and you can even be on one of our subsegments called Mark's Mailbag, where we talk to fans and discuss the wrestling questions that they have for us. This may seem like a shorter episode considering everything that I have discussed, but Anthony was not here, so we were not able to have the back and forth banter on items. He'll be here for the next edition of Pro Wrestling Proverbs. But as always, I'm your host, Logan Keith, with Pro Wrestling Proverbs. I hope you have a great morning, eve, and night.